Hello, everybody. How you doing? My name is Mickey, and this is Mickey in the Middle, the quintessential show for Middle Americans, where all Middle Americans are welcome. We are not talking about the 30%. Sorry about that. The 20% of the crazies on the far left, or the 20% of the crazies on the far right. We're just talking about the 60% of Americans that are in the middle that can all agree on certain things. So tonight, we're going to be talking about Trump and crime in Chicago and other places, and what he's doing, what he plans on doing with the National Guard. We're going to be talking about asset forfeiture, because there's another case that's going up the Supreme Court about a 6-pack of beer, and they took a man's airplane over a 6-pack of beer, and I think that's a little bit excessive, according to the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution. And then we're going to be talking about uh, there was a minute missing in the Epstein cell video that the Department of Justice did not release, but apparently now they're released it. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. And then we're going to talk about $1.4 billion in the lottery. So Powerball is up to $1.4 billion, and what that means to somebody that's going to hit that baby. So if they don't hit it tonight, they're going to hit it what's that, on Friday night, or maybe I don't know. I don't know when the Powerball schedule is, but we're gonna do that. So anyway, hey, Mark Calcaterra, how you doing? Thanks a lot for joining us here on Mickey in the Middle. I'm glad to see you're in, and you win the Mickey in the Middle Comment Olympics, so you win the gold medal. So congratulations, Mark. Well done. All righty. So let's do what we normally do. First, we're going to talk about this right here, which is the Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States. Woo! I love that document right there, and all of the amendments. Currently, there are 8,244,473,943 people sharing the planet with you. How about that? In the United States of America, we have 347 million people. Can you imagine? We're almost up to 350 million people. That's crazy. And how much do we owe? Well, we still owe a lot. We're almost up to $40 billion or $40 trillion. That's $37 trillion, 316 billion, 15 million, 16 million. And look how fast that is going up. That is absolutely crazy, isn't it? So, anyway, let's talk about what's going on in the country. So, what's going on in the country is things are going pretty well. The whole thing with Russia and stopping the Ukraine war, that's kind of like in a, what can we do? What can we do? Trump tried to get Putin and Zelensky together, and he did, right? So he got everybody talking, and that's not going anywhere. So the only thing that can happen is Russia and Ukraine have to come to some sort of an agreement. The United States can only put pressure on. Now, they've got sanctions in place. They're thinking about some secondary sanctions against Russia, trying to put Russia in a bad spot economically. And the economy of Russia is totally crap, but they can still make tanks and missiles and bombs and things like that. So, as long as they have the ability to make all the bombs and the planes and the tanks and everything, Russia going to stay in this unless something happens, because Putin recently said that he is going to continue to keep the pressure on, and if they don't win it by coming to a mutually agreed upon agreement, then they're just going to win it through attrition. So Putin has said that. So they're trying, but nothing's happening there. Israel and what's happening in Gaza still going on. They have not wiped them out yet. So Hamas is still doing Hamas things, and Israel is still doing her Israel things. So nothing has changed there. The economy, nothing has changed on the economy. Gas prices are a little bit better. Egg prices are a little bit better. The economic forecast didn't crash, right? So inflation is now stable. The economy is stable. We're drill, baby, drill. That is set in. So we're doing okay there, but there's no big news to report about that. So the world situation is basically stabilized, with the exception of, and I say this, because Putin and Russia just got together with China and Xi Jinping. And the reason I say that is there are three superpowers in the world. One of them's Russia, one of them's China, and one of them's the United States of America. Now, you could count Europe as a fourth power in the world, the fourth major power. Uh, and now Russia and China seem to be getting in good with each other. So that means that Russia and China can now gang up on the United States and Europe. And that's never going to lead to good things. But that situation is not out of control. So they're just talking, and they're talking about trade, and they're talking about, probably about the United States of America and Trump, and probably saying, hey, let's not mess with America for right now. We're just going to wait him out and see who the next person is that's going to be in there. Sherry Clark came to visit. Hey, Sherry Clark, how you doing? I hope you're doing good. A-State Tires over there. Sherry, go see her. She's on 2nd Street. She's the best tire person in Cabot, Arkansas. So go over there and see Sherry if you need any tires. That's who I get all my tires from Sherry. So let's see. What else is going on? Okay, so let's talk about the domestic situation. So the domestic situation is that we have stabilized the economy, which is a good thing. Yay for us, right? Things aren't crazy, but Jay Powell over at the Fed still has not lowered their interest rates because they're still not sure what the effects of tariff are going to be on long term. So they're keeping interest rates up. Here's what he's doing. The problem with doing that is that we don't have access to cheaper money for businesses and people to use because the bank borrows money from the Fed at a lower interest rate, and then the banks have to make their money too. And that's the way that it works. So as long as Jay Powell doesn't come down with interest rates, he hadn't even dropped them 0.25%. And we're 9 months into Trump's presidency. Come on, Jay Powell, get your stuff together. That's all I'm saying right there. So anyway, the economic situation in the United States is stable. However, the crime situation is still up. Now, everybody knows that Trump took the National Guard and went into Washington, D.C. The reason he can do that is because Washington, D.C., it's in the Constitution, says that a 10-mile by 10-mile area is going to be controlled by the federal government. We're going to call that the Capitol. Now, that's Washington, D.C. Now, how they got a mayor, I'm not really sure about that, but Muriel Bowser's up there, and she agreed to work with Trump and the National Guard to lower crime in Washington, D.C., and apparently it is working. So, the Department of Justice and the National Guard went in there, and the DOJ says that crime statistics are now lower than they have been in a really, really long time in Washington, D.C. So, because of that, Donald Trump has said that he wants to take the National Guard, activate them because it's a national emergency. That's when he can activate the Guard and go into areas like Chicago and Baltimore. So this is what that is going to look like. Now, you can see this says, poll shows majority of Americans don't want Trump to send National Guard to major cities. He says Chicago and Baltimore are next. But it says that thousands of people are objecting to this, and a Yahoo YouGov poll says 37% say that they would approve of the president sending soldiers to other major cities after D.C. In contrast, a majority, 53%, say they would disapprove. Why is this important? Why is this important? Because he shouldn't be doing this, right? It's not a federal national emergency. Right? So if we have the entire Gulf of Mexico wiped out, right? The coastline of the East Coast, the West Coast, right? Then it becomes a national emergency. Trump can activate Guard members if it's a national emergency. But what he's talking about is he's talking about local matters like Chicago. It's not even a state. It's Chicago. It's a city. And here's what the deal is. The federal government needs to be staying out of the affairs of states and cities. I'm sorry to say it, but he's overstepping. He's going beyond what it is. You have to understand that I read the Constitution of the United States all the doggone time. Not every day, but I read it a lot. And in here it says there's going to be a separation of powers between the states and between the federal government. Now, for those of you who don't know, we have 54 or 55 militaries in the United States. right? So we had the federal military, right, which is the Department of the Army, Air Force, Marines, Space Force. Who am I forgetting? Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Space Force. Those are federally controlled, right, by the Pentagon. That's the Department of Defense. So Pete Hegseth heads that. But then you also have uh, National Guard in all 50 states that are controlled by their governors. Now, those troops are assigned to the governor unless they are called up by the federal government. We also have National Guards in Puerto Rico and in Guam and in Samoa, American Samoa, and in Washington, D.C. So there are other, I don't think the Virgin Islands has, or Marianas. I don't know. Maybe they've got it. Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico also has a National Guard. Why is that important? Because those are controlled by the governors of the state. That means that they have troops to be able to activate if there's a problem inside of their state. So if the governor of Illinois thought that Chicago was crime infested and needed to activate his National Guard, the governor of Illinois could do that and actually send troops to Chicago. Well, they haven't done it. That's J.D. Pritzker. Now, is it Donald Trump's job to override Pritzker and say that this is a national emergency, therefore we're going to... No, it's not. Because Pritzker has more assets available to him also. So they also have the state police. They also have marshals. So they have the National Guard, they have state police, they have marshal services inside of each one of the states. So Donald Trump is overstepping the governor of a state, and it clearly says in here, in number 9 or number 10, right? Amendment number 10, everything that's not designated, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited to it by states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. This is a local crime issue. It's a local crime issue. Donald Trump needs to stay out of this. Now, I'm not saying that crime's not bad. It's probably bad in Chicago. Rumors that 8 people died and 50 people got shot this past weekend. But that's not Donald Trump's problem. Donald Trump should be worried about Putin and Zelensky and Europe and Xi and Putin getting together and what's going on in the world. That's why he has a State Department, why he has a Department of Defense. That's why. So he wants crime to come down, and I don't blame him. I want crime to come down. I want crime to be lower in Cabot, Arkansas. I want it to be lower in Little Rock. Listen, right now, the most crime-infested city in the United States of America is Memphis. It's a mess. Little Rock is in the top 5. There's a whole bunch of small cities that are just being eaten up by crime, and Trump is deciding to pick on Chicago. How come he's not talking to Sarah Huckabee Sanders and saying, hey, look here, we're going to activate your guard and send them to Little Rock because I don't want to say shithole, but it's close. And what about Memphis? What about the smaller cities that don't have the name of Chicago or Atlanta or Baltimore? All of those governors, like Atlanta, the governor of Georgia can send them in there. How about Baltimore? Maryland governor can take their National Guard troops and send them into Baltimore. So this is kind of crazy to me that the president of the United States is not being advised by his advisors to keep his nose out of local stuff. Now, I don't criticize good policies and bad policies because of the people that are involved in making the decisions, right? So take Donald Trump out of this. This applies to every single president that goes up and lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's not a Donald Trump thing. So like the border, it's not a Donald Trump thing. It's what is the policy and do I support the policy? It's like international relations. It's not the person sitting in the White House. It's whether I support the policy or not. The war on drugs. Oh my goodness. Did you hear about that? He blew up a boat coming out of Venezuela. No due process there. Just suspected boat full of narco terrorist Tren de Agua people got blown up in the middle of the ocean because they were suspected of having drugs. I don't know whether I agree with that one or not because they don't have due process, right? The way that the process works in the United States of America is that you cannot be predetermined guilty of something. That's why we have due process. So I'm not sure where I fall on the, hey, blowing up Tren de Agua, boat full of drugs and 11 narco terrorists without due process, because you got to grab, and then they go, well, they're not, they've been deemed a terrorist organization. Well, as long as you deem them a terrorist organization, then that's clearly in the federal government thing. But if it's just a bunch of fishermen going out to fish and then you blow them up, then that's bad on us. So the way that it works in the United States of America is you break the law. Do I have that story up here? Yeah, I do. So here it is. So this is. I blew that transition, didn't I? So this is a story. United States military strikes alleged drug vessel from Venezuela in Caribbean Sea, 11 killed. And this is the last picture of the boat before it was exploded. The way that works in the United States of America, and this is not for a terrorist organization because then it's left up to the United States of America to defend the United States of America. And they have said that they were trafficking fentanyl to come into the United States. And fentanyl is a known killer of Americans. Therefore, we preemptively struck them down before they can get to those drugs to the United States of America. Now, I agree with the concept. If the United States of America has great evidence that that is so, I don't have access to all the information. But the same thing applies to Chicago. You're declaring a national emergency for Chicago, and you have predetermined that bad things are happening there, and the United States federal government needs to get involved. It's not the same thing as narco terrorists coming across because you have a governor, you have a mayor, you have police forces, you have different options for Chicago, Baltimore, Maryland, LA, all the places, Washington, D.C., right? Not Washington. Washington's not in that group, right? But New York City, a bunch of the other ones. St. Louis is another example where the crime is rampant. So there's a big difference between blowing up a narco terrorist, which I'm not sure whether I agree with that, right? Catch the boat, get the drugs, put the people in jail, and give them due process. Catch them in a port, if you will. So anyway, I disagree with Donald Trump if he is going to put federal troops into federal National Guard, federally activated by the president, into places like Chicago, Baltimore, Atlanta, St. Louis, et cetera, et cetera. So I needed to get that off my chest because I think that that's a bunch of BS that's out there. So I want to get to the fun story now. This is a damn shame, is what it is. This is a shame. Let's talk about what a shame is. An Alaska man had a 6-pack of beer and it was deemed to be illegal. So the state of Alaska took his $95,000 airplane, and now his court is finally reaching the Supreme Court. What are we talking about here? We're talking about asset forfeiture because the Supreme Court of the United States has said on multiple occasions, and lower courts have said, that if somebody is suspected of a crime, you can seize their assets in order to make sure that they cannot prosecute any more crime. The only problem with that is, let's say that you're suspect. Let's say that you have $50,000 in a briefcase, and you are driving down the road, and a cop pulls you over and says, "Hey, what's in the briefcase?" And you go, $50,000. They can suspect you of dealing drugs or running drug money, and they can take the $50,000 and your car or your truck without any due process, without you seeing a judge, without you having a lawyer, without somebody prosecuting you. They can just take your shit. That's what they did to this guy. So here's the whole story. The whole story is this guy right here Alaska man presents to the Supreme Court. Ken Juppie, 82-year-old Alaskan guy. So Ken was given a ride to somebody to an Alaskan village that was dry. Dry means no alcohol. On the way, prior to taking off, the inspectors came over and they found the person that he was carrying had a bunch of beer that he was going to take up to this village. Now, the pilot didn't know about that, and that's that Ken guy. So, what they did was they seized all the beer. Now, Ken had a beer after he flew all the time, so he had a six-pack of beer in his airplane. But because he was taking the beer to a dry city, they deemed it illegal, and they took his beer and they took his airplane. They took the other guy's beer too, and I don't know what they charged him with, but without due process, the state of Alaska has kept this guy's six-pack of beer and his airplane for 10 years. So they took this guy's ability to make a living away from him over a six-pack of beer. So when it went to court, the court said they can take your beer and your airplane because it is not excessive. Now, in the Constitution of the United States of America, if you go to Amendment number 8, it says, in suits at common law, which this is, where the value and controversy shall exceed $20, a six-pack of beer and an airplane is worth more than $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of law than according to the rules in common law. Number 8, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed or cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Now, we're talking about the 7th and 8th Amendment. The 8th Amendment is the most important. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed. The dude said, you took a six-pack of you got me for a six-pack of beer and you took a $95,000 airplane for a fucking year. Oh, sorry. For an effing year. Or for 10 years. So in the Alaskan legal system, they said that that's not excessive because the city was dry. And by bringing beer into the city, you are threatening all of the people in the area. That's what they ruled. The court ruled that they could take a $95,000 airplane, although 6 people could have 1 beer or 1 person can have 6 beers. If you know me and beer and my history with beer, you know that I could do a six-pack in about 3 hours and not be excessively in jeopardy, right? So they said it was not excessive because he brought beer up there, and it's Native Alaskans have a problem with alcohol, so he threatened the entire community by bringing a six-pack of beer up there, and that's what the court ruled. He said that's BS, and now he's taking it on a constitutional ground of the 8th Amendment to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court is janky. Who knows what those asshats? Who knows what those people, most of the time they get it right, but a lot of time they got it wrong. So they got it wrong with Brown versus the Board of Education. They got it wrong in the Dred Scott decision. They got it wrong over abortion rights. They got it wrong a lot of times. But the Supreme Court has found that civil forfeiture is legal if the state does it. And I think it's just theft of the state. If you want to take my stuff, let me have a trial by jury first and then fine me, right? And in a civil case, you can only be fined. It's not criminal. There's 2 different types of cases in the United States. The first one is criminal, which is prosecuted by the state. And the other one is civil, which sometimes is prosecuted by the state, but that's how we get along with each other. So there's 2 court systems in the United States of America. This happens to fall on the civil side. That's why it's called civil forfeiture. You're welcome. Now, I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to play one on TV, but that's very, very important because if they stop you with money, if they stop you with drugs, if they stop you with a six-pack of beer, apparently they can take all of your stuff without a trial. But when this guy went to trial, they were like, hey, we're keeping your stuff anyway, which is excessive to me to take a $95,000 airplane. And the guy said that he's prosecuting this case to prove a point about the Constitution and the Eighth Amendment, that the states don't have the rights and police authorities don't have the right just to take your stuff, and especially excessively take your stuff. So that's all I got to say about that. It's absolutely crazy. Oh, Carolyn Greg's Ledger showed up. Hey, Carolyn, how you doing? I'm so glad that you're here. Go back and watch the rest of the show that you missed. I kind of explained what was going on with Trump and the uh, activation of the National Guard going into Chicago and Baltimore and places like that. So, what do we want to talk about next? The missing Epstein minute. All right, so we're not going to do this long. So, what happened with the Epstein minute? So, the Department of Justice said they were going to release everything they had about the Epstein files. However, when they released the video about that, people watched the video and they watched the timestamps. And now the stamps are very interesting because they're down here on the bottom. Oh, there it is. They're down here on the bottom of the screen. You can see the time ticking by right there. Why is that important? Well, there was 1 minute that was missing. The problem is that it wasn't missing. A few months ago, Pam Bondi said the minute was missing because they have to change the minute worth of tape in order the system resets. And because the system reset, it was 2 different videos. Well, come to find out, that was bullshit. Pam Bondi lied to the American people. That's why it's important. So now they do have that. So now there's no missing minutes of the Epstein thing. So Jeffrey Epstein, I don't know who killed him, but he's dead. And I don't really care other than that, but I'm just reporting the news tonight. So let's see what else. And then finally, what do we have? What do we have? We have $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion in the Powerball tonight. I've been thinking about it. I don't buy Powerball tickets very often, but I bought Powerball tickets when it was $1.1 billion on Monday night, and I bought some more tickets when it's $1.4 billion, and the drawing is going to be in 29 minutes and 41 seconds. So, what would you be doing? What would you be doing with $1.4 billion? Woo! And would you take the cash value? The cash value is going to be $634 million. Would you take the cash? $634 million. $634 million cash or $1.4 billion over 20 years. Here's what I'm doing. I'm taking the $1.4 billion over 20 years, and I'll figure out the taxes later. Because even if the government takes half of it, that's going to be more than $634 million. And I will make sure that I have a lawyer that's going to set that up in some type of a trust fund for my daughter and for my siblings. So that means that my siblings are going to be, because here's what the thing is. I have to take care of 3 things. First of all, I have to take care of God, right? Second thing I have to take care of is my family. Third thing I have to take care of is my community. The fourth thing I have to take care of is my country. Now, the country is going to take their cut. No matter what happens, when I win $1.4 billion, the United States of America is going to take their cut. Nothing I can do about that, so let's just put that off to the side. Second thing I need to do is God is good. God is great. When I die, I'm hoping that I go to heaven. I'm a sinner, so you got to be forgiven, and you got to understand the way, but I got to be able to take care of the church, so I'll be doing that. Third thing is my family. Most important person on this planet to me is my daughter. She is up in Fayetteville, and I will be doing my darndest if I win $1.4 billion to be taking care of her every day that I'm alive on this planet for the rest of my life and her life. And then her kids, if she has any kids with her husband at any time. But then there's going to be a little bit of money that I could be able to sprinkle around. Now, everybody says that your family turns weird when you win a lot of money. Well, I would expect them to turn weird. What do you do, man? Now, I'm not going to change much. I'm only going to buy a couple of airplanes, a couple of houses. I'm only going to buy a couple of yachts. I'm going to go on fishing charters. I'm going to go travel the world. I'm not going to change much. I'm not going to change much, but my lifestyle is going to change a lot. Boom! I'm just kidding. I'm still going to play pickleball in the morning. I'm still going to go hit golf balls in the afternoon. I might buy a little apartment closer to Top Golf so that I can go hit a bunch of golf balls every single day without bothering Ricky and Janet. So that'll be fun. And then I don't know, maybe buy an airplane, learn how to fly so I can a small airplane, nothing big, nothing like John Travolta's 747 or anything like that. Maybe, but what would you do if you got $1.4 billion? That's what I want to know. You can throw comments up there if you want to. But it's good to dream. And I think somewhere in the Bible it says, a man without a dream shall perish. So I'm going to dream big. I'm going to dream about $1.4 billion. Here we go. So, hey, anyway, that's going to be the show tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Mickey. This is Mickey in the middle of the week, every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central, almost. And we hope you had a good time today. Thank you very much for being here with me. I just want to let you know I love you. Have a great night. Woo!
First sight when she walked through that door, the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen before. Sea green eyes and long blonde hair, cool smooth smile and didn't have a care. I don't know why, but she walked my way. I was scared to death, but I was ready to play. Love at first sight sets the spirit free. I felt the dark clouds part, I heard the angels sing. My heart caught fire and my soul can fly.